Hi guys, this is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you. I hope you had listened to the earlier two parts where we have extensively talked about what is emotional intelligence, and subsequently we released another video in terms of what is brain, how it works, differences between IQ, EQ, etc. In this particular chapter, we are going to talk about the nature of emotional intelligence, and we are going to talk a lot about emotional hijacking. Many a times it happens, and just as an example, we are going to talk about a very important incident which is called as carrier girl murders. Now we are going to talk about this story of a burglar, and this story goes back to the year 1963, and if you remember, that was the same year Martin Luther King delivered his famous speech in US, and this is a story about a burglar whose name is Richard Robles, because this story was quoted by Daniel Goleman himself in his book on emotional intelligence. So it's a very pertinent story, very relevant to the topic, and that is why I'm sharing the name of that story. The name of the burglar was Richard Robles, and he was convicted many times for breaking. He was a burglar by profession, and while on parole he decided that he will commit one last crime, and after that he will stop. That was his intention, guys. So while on parole, he breaks into the house of two girls, bachelor girls, one of whom is Janice Woolley, who is a reporter in the Newsweek magazine, and the other girl was Emily, who is a school physics teacher, right? So he breaks inside, ties that school teacher, all right, robs whatever they had, but he had this feeling of guilt, but he thought, let me commit one last robbery, and after that I will never ever do this ever in life. I will be free for the rest of my life. That was his intention, guys. So when he was on the process of moving out with the stolen goods, Janice Woolley enters the house, and when she enters, he sees the whole thing. He ties her also. And at this moment, Janice, who is a reporter in Newsweek's magazine, tells the burglar, he says, you've selected a very wrong house for burglary. I'm a journalist from Newsweek, and I have seen your face very clearly. You can never ever escape from us. She makes this strong statement. In that spur of the moment, the burglar kills both of those girls. All this happens in just 1 or 2 minutes. Everything happens, guys. Everything happens. Okay, the rest is right. We're not getting into the other story because that's a very long story. But what's important is it made the headlines, and it made the infamous carrier girl murders. So from an emotional intelligence point of view, what happened? In just 3 minutes, what happened? We're not going to justify burglary by any stretch of imagination. But in fact, this burglar had decided that this was his last act of burglary. And at that time, something happens, and that is what is called as emotional hijacking. Many a times, hijacking takes place. Absolutely, you do not have any time to think. Your emotions take over your rational thoughts, and after that there is remorse and nothing else. So this burglar will have this remorse throughout his life till the last moment, right? So this is a case of emotional hijack, and this is also called as neural hijack. Many a times in neural hijack, what happens is evidence suggests that there is a center in the limbic brain. Remember, we talked about many kinds of brain centers, reptilian brains, mammalian brain, neocortex and all that. A center in the limbic brain, it proclaims an emergency. Look at this. This is kind of an emergency situation, and when it proclaims an emergency situation, what happens is it recruits the rest of the brain cells, right? It recruits all those neurocells, neurochemical reactions. We're not getting deep into the subject, but it recruits the rest of the cells in the brain to its urgent agenda. This is something like hijacking, which happens within your own brain. And this hijacking occurs instantly, triggering this kind of a reaction, guys, right? And when does that happen? It happens moments before the neocortex. Remember, we talked about neocortex? Neocortex is the thinking brain. But even before the neocortex, which is the thinking brain, it has a chance to glimpse at the event, then do the analysis and then decide. Because your neocortex is the thinking brain. It looks at the situation. It looks at the pros and cons, positive, negative effects, analyzing brain. But before even the neocortex does its job, your limbic brain acts in a much faster manner and it performs all those actions, and in this case the murder of those carrier girls. And after that incident happens, your neocortex will tell you, oh my God, what have we done? This shouldn't have been done. In that kind of a situation, in that spur of the moment, many a times we lose control because your limbic brain overtakes your thinking brain, and it becomes far more powerful, more than your neocortex, which is your thinking brain. And that's the reason for most of those instances that we have discussed, whether it is this instances of people even killing people in the spur of the moment. We have so many such instances. We will not get, you can have a look at the newspaper, look at things for yourself. So what typically happens is extremely irrelevant story, which is why I wanted to bring this story, right? So as we have repeatedly seen, the academic intelligence has got very little to do with your emotional intelligence. We have talked extensively about these in our earlier videos. There is a direct correlation between your EQ and life circumstances. There is no doubt about it. We have always seen high level IQ people, they score good marks, they get into big institutions, they progress very well in life. But researchers have also shown that IQ contributes only 20% to your success, especially above a certain level, right? The non-IQ part we are talking about, which is about the feelings, how you handle the feelings, that contributes more than 80% of your success in life, guys. And it's not just for specific segments of the population, it ranges across all populations, all classes, professional classes, etc. For example, people with high SAT scores, CAT is your examination for getting into the institution of management, IIMs. If anyone wants to become a big mathematician or a statistician or a professor, go ahead. Because your EQ may not matter as much. But if you want to become a great businessman, a successful politician, or you want to make more than $1 billion, think again. Your IQ alone cannot get you to that level, guys. Check if you have other qualities. What are those other qualities? Very important qualities is how people persist in the face of challenges, how people handle disasters, because that's what will make a person extremely successful. There are 3 important characteristics required. Very, very important traits. One is delay of gratification. I will explain to you what is delay in gratification, not worry on that. The second is regulating one's moods. And the third is the ability to think and the ability to empathize. These things are extremely important.